Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a story usually buried under layers of myth and, frankly, sensationalism. We're talking about the empire of Pablo Escobar.
Right. And when you say Escobar, most people think of the larger-than-life figure, the guy who literally shot his way onto the Forbes list, first name basis worldwide.
Exactly. But we're not really focusing on that legend today. Our approach is maybe a bit different. We're looking at it through the numbers, through the logistics.
Yeah, specifically through the eyes of someone who was right there, inside it all. His brother, Roberto Escobar, he was the accountant.
Which gives us this incredibly unique viewpoint, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the violence, though there's plenty of that. It's the mechanics, the sheer business of it all. Roberto called it a life of poetry and guns.
And that duality is key. You have this guy listed by Forbes as one of the world's richest men.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, he's a wanted terrorist to governments, a sort of saint to the poor in Medellín he built houses for, and a complete monster to pretty much everyone else caught in the crossfire.
It's impossible to reconcile those images easily.
Totally. And maybe the best way to grasp the just insane scale we're dealing with, before we even start the story, is this one detail from Roberto, the accountant.
Oh, this one blew my mind.
He estimated they lost about 10% of their total cash earnings every single year.
How? Not bad investments, right?
No. Lost it because the physical dollar bills hidden away were literally being eaten by rats or just destroyed by water damage and dampness.
Just gone. 10%.
Think about that. You have so much cash that losing a tenth of it to rodents is just a cost of doing business. It's cheaper or safer than trying to launder or bank it all.
It forces you to look past the gunfire and see the sheer logistical nightmare, the creativity they needed just to manage the physical money.
Exactly. That's the world we're diving into, the accountant's side of the story.
Okay, so to really understand Pablo Escobar, you can't just jump straight to the cocaine empire. You have to look at where he came from.
Absolutely. Colombia itself was steeped in violence long before him. It wasn't like he invented brutality.
No, he was basically born into it. We're talking about the period known as La Valencia.
Yeah, mid-century, roughly late 40s into the 50s. It was this incredibly bloody internal conflict, maybe 300,000 people killed.
And the violence wasn't just widespread, it was gruesome.
Yeah.
Calculatedly so.
The sources are really explicit, methods designed to terrorize. Things like victims being cut up, tongues pulled out and left on the chest.
And that horrific technique, the corte florero.
The flower vase cut, yeah. Just unbelievably brutal. Limbs amputated and then arranged back inside the torso. It's hard to even describe.
But that was the background radiation, this sort of ambient level of violence and political cruelty in the air back then.
And on top of that national trauma, the Escobar family had their own intense struggles with poverty.
Right, their father was a cattle rancher, had a decent herd, over 500 cows.
And then disease wiped them out.
Yeah.
Complete bankruptcy. He had to take a low-paying construction job.
And Roberto, the brother, paints a really vivid picture of that poverty. The whole family, 5 of them, crammed into one bedroom.
The kids' walking hours just to get to school each day. 4 hours, apparently.
Yeah, and that story about the shoes. Pablo getting sent home from school because he didn't have any.
And his mother, Hermilda, a teacher herself, having to go and essentially take a pair from a vendor, promising to pay later when she got her salary.
You can imagine the shame, the impact that kind of thing has on a kid.
Yeah.
Especially Pablo.
But the most defining trauma, it seems, was one specific night. In Tichurubu, these local political mobs, the Chusmeros, came after their house.
They thought the family were liberals.
Right.
Mistakenly.
Yeah. Roberto remembers hiding under the bed with Pablo, who was only about 7, their mother praying frantically while the attackers tried to break down the door.
And when they couldn't break it down,
They threw gasoline on it, set the house on fire.
Jesus, they were rescued by the army eventually.
But the image that stuck with the boys wasn't the rescue. It was walking away from their burning house, seeing bodies in the street.
Hanging from lampposts, lying in gutters.
And Roberto specifically mentions the smell of burning flesh. That was a core childhood memory.
It sort of frames everything that comes later, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
level of brutality normalized so early.
Definitely. And amidst all this, there's also this inherited knowledge of, let's say, practical criminality.
From their grandfather, Roberto Gaviria.
Exactly. Their maternal grandfather. He was a bootlegger, made Tapatusa a local liquor.
And he had this ingenious smuggling method.
Right. Hiding the bottles in a sealed coffin, staging a fake funeral procession through town with hired mourners.
Nobody stops a funeral procession to check for contraband. Genius in a way.
But the real lesson wasn't just the smuggling technique. He got caught eventually.
Uh-huh.
But he was released almost immediately. And the takeaway for Pablo watching this was clear. You have to share the profits.
The authorities.
Yeah, police, politicians, whoever's in power, that's how you survive in that business. It became a core principle for Pablo.
So you have these two brothers growing up in this intense environment. Poverty, violence, a bit of criminal legacy.
And they developed completely different ambitions. Roberto, the older one, wanted a legitimate life.
He was into cycling and electronics.
Professional cyclist was the dream, then maybe engineer, accountant. Pretty normal aspirations.
Oh, Pablo.
Pablo was laser-focused on escaping that poverty, that shame. He made this vow.
To be a millionaire by 22.
Yeah, and he supposedly said, if I don't, I'm going to kill myself. Just incredibly intense.
And he also wanted to be president of Colombia.
Yeah.
Seems almost contradictory.
Well, maybe not if you see power and wealth as the ultimate goal. Regardless of how you get there, it all feeds into this massive driving ambition.
Okay, so let's talk about how Pablo actually started in crime. Because there are all these legends.
Right, like the tombstone story. Stealing them and sanding them down.
Is that true?
According to Roberto, no. He says Pablo started by buying really old, unwanted stones from cemeteries, totally legally, and just reselling them at his uncle's shop. A simple hustle.
So the first real illegal stuff was more like his grandfather's business.
Exactly. Contraband. Smuggling goods, avoiding taxes. This was actually pretty common, almost socially acceptable in some ways.
Because it only hurt the government, was the thinking.
Pretty much. It was a good training ground, low risk compared to other things.
But obviously he didn't stick with contraband. The shift to cocaine happened relatively quickly.
And the reason was pure economics and logistics. Roberto said it was just an easier way to make money.
Easier how? Seems more dangerous.
Easier in terms of profit density? Think about it. One carload of cocaine carried by one person could make more money than 40 truckloads of regular contraband, like cigarettes or appliances.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. Much higher value, much smaller volume.
Suddenly, you don't need huge warehouses and fleets of trucks. You need stealth, efficiency, and ways to move small, incredibly valuable packages.
So in those early days, how did it start? Was he the main guy right away?
He was definitely a key player early on, mainly because he was one of the few successfully getting the raw coca paste or base from Peru into Colombia for processing.
But still small scale initially.
Very small, moving just a few kilos at a time. And the first lab or kitchen they set up was apparently just at a regular house in a residential neighborhood, Berlin. And they were using old refrigerators, converted somehow as makeshift ovens to process the coke.
Really basic stuff, almost improvised.
Totally. The demand was driving it, not sophisticated technology at that point.
And the Medellín Cartel itself, what was it actually like? We hear the name all the time, but Roberto's description is different.
Yeah, he really emphasizes it was not like the Cali cartel, which was run more like a traditional hierarchical business by established families using, accountants and engineers from the start.
So Medellín was different.
Much looser, more like a tactical alliance, a collection of powerful independent dealers, Pablo, Carlos later, the Ochoa brothers, gotcha.
Right.
They banded together basically for mutual benefit, protection, controlling the market, pooling resources when needed, but they were still independent operators.
And what really solidified that alliance was there a specific event.
Yes, a major one. In 1981, the M19 guerrillas kidnapped Martha Neves Ochoa.
What of the Ochoa brothers' sister?
Exactly. The guerrillas figured, correctly, that these drug guys couldn't exactly run to the cops for help.
Smart, in a grim way.
But Pablo's response was immediate and decisive. He called a huge meeting at his big estate, Hacienda Naples. Over 200 drug traffickers showed up.
And that's where they formed MAS.
Muerta a secuestradores. Death to kidnappers. It was essentially their own private army formed to hunt down the M19 and get Martha Neves back. And they did.
So that was the real beginning of them acting as a unified force.
Absolutely. With Pablo clearly taking the lead, he even reportedly used information bought from the police to help track the kidnappers. Shows the level of infiltration already.
And around this time, Pablo actually hit that goal he set for himself, didn't he?
He did. Became a millionaire by 22. Even one early contraband shipment apparently netted him $120,000. This is before the cocaine money really started flooding in.
And what did he do with that first wave of serious money?
Well, personally, he helped his mother buy a new house, put down the payment.
Okay.
But then came the move that really built his public image, this sort of PR masterstroke.
The Robin Hood thing.
Yeah. He filled a huge truck with expensive food, fresh meat, fish, vegetables, things the poorest people couldn't afford,
And just gave it away?
drove it straight into this massive city garbage dump where hundreds of people were living in absolute squalor, and just handed it all out.
Wow. Instant legend status among the poor, I bet.
Totally. It bought him incredible loyalty, a base of support that was invaluable later on. He wasn't just a criminal, he was their benefactor.
Okay, this section is where Roberto's perspective as the accountant, the logistics guy, really comes into focus. The sheer ingenuity and ruthlessness involved in moving the product and hiding the cash is staggering.
It really is. Let's start with the human mules, the people actually carrying the drugs across borders.
They got incredibly creative with this, right?
Unbelievably so. Always trying to maximize the amount carried while avoiding detection. They had, specially made suitcases with false bottoms or double walls.
How much could they fit in those?
Up to 5 kilos, apparently. And then there were the shoes. They had shoes made, probably in a factory owned by a partner, with hollowed-out soles to hide coke.
Clever. And they used disguises, too.
Oh, yeah. People dressed as nuns, even pretending to be blind, using hollow walking sticks, anything to deflect suspicion.
And the wheelchair tactic.
That was apparently quite common. A person in a wheelchair could literally be sitting on a fortune, maybe $1 million worth of cocaine packed beneath them. Security was often less rigorous with disabled travelers back then.
It's exploiting sympathy, basically.
Exactly. But the most dangerous method by far was swallowing.
Having people swallow condoms packed with cocaine.
Yeah. The risk was immense. If even one of those packets leaked or burst inside you.
Instant overdose.
Yeah.
Fatal.
Absolutely. Yet, Roberto notes, they never had trouble finding poor people desperate enough to take that risk for a few $1,000s. It's a grim reality.
So that's the human side. What about the larger scale operations? Air transport.
This is where the infrastructure becomes really impressive in a terrifying way. They're labs, like the famous Tranquilandia.
Oh, owned with Gotcha, right.
Yeah. These weren't small sheds. They were like hidden industrial complexes deep in the jungle, capable of huge output.
How much was Tranquilandia producing?
The estimates are just wild. Up to 20 tons of cocaine a month. Over 2 years, that single facility might have produced product worth something like $12 billion.
$12 billion from one jungle lab.
It's almost incomprehensible. And supporting that scale required serious logistical planning, not just hiding it.
Which brings us to one of Roberto's most famous innovations, the runway on wheels.
Yeah, this was at a different large lab on a huge farm near Los Llanos Orientales, about 37,000 acres.
So what was it exactly?
They built the main airstrip, but then they constructed around 70 small houses directly on the runway path.
On the runway. How could planes land?
The houses were built on wooden wheels. When a plane radioed in its approach, the residents, who were all part of the operation, had just 3 minutes to physically roll their entire houses off the runway.
Get out. That's incredible coordination.
And it made the airstrip completely invisible from the air most of the time. Just looked like a small village.
The level of planning is nuts. And the pilots?
Often highly skilled. Vietnam veterans were frequently mentioned. They were paid extremely well, often by the kilo they successfully delivered.
And they varied the routes constantly.
All the time. They had standard routes, maybe 8 or so, but they'd mix them up, combine them, use decoy flights, very sophisticated evasion tactics.
Okay, let's switch to the other side of the logistics nightmare. The money. All that cash flooding back.
Right. Which brings us back to that shocking number. Losing 10% just to physical decay and pests.
Why didn't they just, launder it faster?
Well, laundering itself was incredibly expensive and risky. Roberto estimated that trying to clean that volume of U.S. cash and get it back to Colombia could cost 50, even 60% of its value.
50 to 60%. Just in fees and bribes.
Exactly. Suddenly, letting 10% get eaten by rats in a hole in the ground seems like a much better deal, doesn't it?
Yeah, if the alternative is losing more than half, you keep control, less risk of getting caught through the financial system.
It's a grim cost-benefit analysis, though there were apparently some cheaper laundering options.
Oh, yeah.
Roberto mentions a specific group. He calls them the Jewish people with the black hats, presumably referring to Orthodox Jewish money movers who offered a much lower rate, maybe only 6%.
Wow, that's a huge difference. Why so low?
The catch was you had to provide them with an extremely convincing non-drug-related cover story for where the money came from, reduce their risk, you get the better rate.
So if laundering was too expensive or risky,
Sure.
and you couldn't spend it fast enough, you had to hide it.
which led to Roberto developing the Coletas system.
The hiding spots.
But these weren't just crude holes, they were often engineered, built into walls of houses, carefully insulated.
With styrofoam. Why?
To protect the cash from moisture. Damp bills rot, and they also smell.
Right, the smell. How do they deal with that?
Coffee grounds. They packed coffee grounds in the Coletas to absorb moisture and, more importantly, mask the distinct metallic, musty smell of large amounts of aging currency.
That's a fascinating detail.
Yeah.
And these could hold a lot of money.
Some could hold up to $5 million in cash. And the locations were top secret. Often only Pablo and Roberto knew where they all were. Never written down.
How many did they have?
Potentially hundreds across various properties.
And the most elaborate one.
Had to be the hydraulic pool. This was in a house in a wealthy Medellin neighborhood, El Poblado.
A pool on hydraulics.
Yeah, a regular-looking fiberglass children's pool. But it was built on hydraulic lifts. With a secret combination, the whole pool would raise up.
Revealing what?
6 large styrofoam-lined storage compartments hidden underneath. You could swim in the pool and have absolutely no idea there were tens of millions of dollars stashed right below you.
The engineering involved. It's like something out of a spy movie.
It shows the level of sophistication they reached, not just in trafficking, but in concealment and asset protection.
All this money inevitably led Pablo to crave political power, real legitimacy.
Yeah.
He actually got elected to Congress in 1982, didn't he, as an alternate?
He did. But that move, trying to straddle both worlds, the criminal underworld and legitimate politics, proved to be a fatal mistake.
How so?
Because it put him directly in the crosshairs of people like the Minister of Justice, Rodrigo Lara Bonilla. In '83, Lara Bonilla publicly denounced him, exposed his drug ties, used his influence.
And forced him out of his Congress seat.
Exactly, which was a massive public humiliation for Pablo, who desperately wanted that acceptance, that power.
And Pablo didn't take humiliation well.
Not at all. Lara Bonilla was assassinated just months later, in April 1984.
And everyone knew who was behind it.
Pretty much. And that single act had huge consequences. President Beckmanker, who had maybe been hesitant before, felt forced to sign the extradition treaty papers with the U.S.
So that assassination directly led to the threat of extradition.
Directly. From that point on, it was essentially open war between Escobar and the Colombian state, fueled by the U.S. pressure for extradition.
And while Pablo was escalating things politically, law enforcement was getting smarter technologically, too. The Tranquilandia raid is a good example.
Definitely. Destroying that massive lab, taking out 15 tons of coke, that wasn't just luck.
They tracked them somehow.
Yeah, using some pretty advanced tech for the time, they apparently hid tracking devices, transponders, inside drums of ether being shipped from the U.S.
Ether, the chemical needed to make cocaine.
Exactly. You need a lot of it, like 17 liters for every kilo of cocaine produced. They tracked those specific drums all the way from New Jersey down to the remote jungle location of the lab.
Shows a high level of intelligence cooperation, probably the U.S.
For sure. So the state was fighting back technologically, and Pablo needed soldiers for his side of the war.
Which is where the sicarios come in, the young assassins.
Right. He recruited heavily from the poorest neighborhoods, targeting teenagers, kids as young as 13, 14 years old.
What was the appeal? Just money.
Mostly. These kids might be earning like $1 a week doing odd jobs, maybe in a garage. Pablo offered them thousands of dollars for carrying out hits.
It's an impossible choice for a kid in that situation. Instant wealth and status versus grinding poverty.
It bought incredible loyalty and a generation of young men willing to kill and die for him. But it wasn't just kids on the street.
No.
The level of corruption within the official forces was staggering. Roberto talks about the police in Medellin being on the payroll.
How much?
Regular monthly payments.
Yeah.
Something like $400,000 a month just to the Medellin police units.
$400,000 a month. That's not just bribing a few cops. That's basically buying the entire force.
Pretty much operating it as his private security and intelligence network. It really makes you question who the state even was at that point. Was he fighting the government or just the parts he didn't own?
Yeah, it blurs all the lines. And the violence wasn't just against the state. It turned inward between the cartels.
Viciously. The Cali cartel struck a major blow in 1987, bombing Pablo's heavily fortified building in Medellin, the Monaco.
His castle, they called it. Reinforced steel, the works.
Yeah, and the bomb was massive. A huge car bomb, did enormous damage.
But his family survived.
Miraculously, yes. Roberto tells this story about his mother being shielded from flying glass and shrapnel because a large picture of the baby Jesus fell off the wall right in front of her at the moment of the blast.
Wow. That mix of extreme violence and, folk Catholicism is so central to this story.
It really is. But the violence escalated beyond targeted attacks into pure terrorism against civilians. The Avianca bombing,
1989, Flight HK 1803, just horrific, 107 people killed.
blamed widely on Pablo. The motives are still debated. Was he trying to kill presidential candidate Cesar Gaviria, who wasn't actually on the flight?
Or Cali informants, maybe?
Possibly, but the method itself was just pure evil.
They use a Suizo, right? An unwitting bomber.
Yeah. Some poor young man tripped into carrying the bomb on board. He was given a device, told it was a tape recorder to secretly record some guys sitting near him.
Seat 15F, the sources say.
Right. And when he turned the knob, supposedly to start recording, he detonated the bomb, killed himself and everyone else.
It's a sheer cynicism. Weaponizing an innocent person like that.
It marked a point of no return, really. And through all this, Roberto himself was constantly in danger, constantly on the run.
He had that escape through the sewers.
Yeah, back in '84, after the crackdown started, he and Gustavo Gaviria had to flee through the city's storm drains and sewer pipes. Roberto called it nasty, dirty, and disgusting.
And he said that moment, crawling through filth, was when he knew his old life, his identity as a cycling champion, was completely gone.
Yeah, a hunted man. And then there was the time he was actually kidnapped by police.
By cops, not criminals.
Yeah, corrupt cops looking for a payday, presumably. They pulled him over. But luckily, his bodyguard, a woman named Lorena, was quick thinking.
What did she do?
She was listening on a walkie-talkie tuned to Pablo's frequency, saw the whole thing, and immediately started relaying the cops' license plate numbers, descriptions, everything, directly to Pablo's network.
So Pablo knew instantly.
Instantly. And Pablo himself got on the horn, called the captors.
What did he say?
Roberto remembers the call, basically. This is Pablo Escobar. I know who you are. I have all your details. My brother's life is on you. Chillingly effective.
But Roberto didn't just wait to be rescued.
No, he saw an opportunity. One of the cops guarding him actually dozed off.
You're kidding.
Nope. Roberto grabbed the sleeping cop's machine gun, turned it on the others, forced them under the car, and just bolted into the jungle, saved himself through sheer nerve.
Okay, so the pressure, the violence, it just kept escalating. Eventually, Pablo started negotiating with the government, right? But he had one absolute bottom line.
Just one thing he wouldn't budge on. No extradition. He'd give up almost anything else, but he would not face trial in the United States.
And he actually got it.
He did. It required changing the entire Colombian constitution, believe it or not. In June 1991, they passed an amendment forbidding the extradition of Colombian citizens.
That's incredible leverage.
Yeah.
Changing the Constitution for one man.
It shows how much power he still wielded, even under siege. And with that guarantee, he agreed to surrender.
Which led to the creation of La Catedral, the cathedral, his custom-built prison.
Yeah, prison in the loosest possible sense of the word. The conditions were unbelievable, starting with how they stocked it with cash.
They smuggled money into the prison.
$10 million, packed into old milk canisters.
How did they get that past the guards?
Covered the cash inside the canisters with layers of food salt, rice, smelly fresh fish to disguise the contents. Then just buried the canisters near the soccer field inside the prison grounds.
A rainy day fund, right there under the pitch.
Ah!
And the living conditions.
Pure luxury, full electronics, big screen TVs. Roberto mentions Pablo had his Elvis and Sinatra record collection flown in, stuff he'd bought himself at Graceland years before.
Seriously, Graceland records in his Colombian prison cell.
And a fully stocked bar, high-tech equipment everywhere. It was basically a secure luxury compound.
And the social life wasn't exactly typical prison stuff either.
Far from it. They threw huge parties. Roberto mentions beauty queens visiting, including, apparently, a Miss Universe runner-up.
Yes, casually visiting Pablo Escobar in his prison.
It sounds completely surreal. But not all the relationships were like that. There was his cousin, Pelalindo.
What was that about?
Apparently a genuinely innocent, sweet relationship. They'd hang out, play soccer on the prison's lighted field at night, and spend hours together just cutting out and arranging political cartoons about Pablo from the newspapers into albums, like a scrapbook project. A little pocket of normalcy, maybe.
Still, even with this surrender deal, the violence didn't stop entirely outside the walls.
No. A huge blow came shortly after the talks began. Gustavo Gaviria.
Pablo's cousin, his right-hand man from the very beginning.
Yeah, arguably his closest confidante. The search block, the special police unit hunting them, found and killed him.
even while Pablo was supposedly negotiating peace.
Exactly. It showed the government, or parts of it, were still playing hardball, still aiming to dismantle the organization piece by piece, deal or no deal.
So the stay at La Cathedral didn't last forever. Pablo escaped.
He did. Roberto talks about having this premonition, a recurring dream about a priest, which for him always meant danger was coming.
And he warned Pablo.
Yeah, and Pablo himself started believing the government was going to break the deal, maybe try to move him to a real prison or even extradite him anyway, despite the new constitution.
So they planned an escape.
A pretty bold one. They waited for a night with heavy fog and rain on the mountain where La Catedral was built.
Used the weather for cover.
Exactly. Slipped out quietly, one by one, cut through the perimeter fence, which was apparently quite thick wire.
And then just disappeared.
Used a natural gully, like a trench or ravine nearby, to get down the mountainside and away.
And Roberto mentions wearing something specific during the escape.
Yeah, a little symbolic touch. He wore his old cycling cap from his racing days, the one with Bicicleta Celosito on it, a connection back to the life he'd lost.
Pablo's escape unleashed hell, didn't it? The rise of Los Pepes.
Los Pepes, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar. This was a vigilante group funded by rivals like the Cali Cartel and later led by figures like Carlos Castaño.
And their goal was simple.
Total annihilation of anything connected to Escobar. They started hunting down and killing not just his sicarios, but his lawyers, his accountants, his business associates, even distant family members. Anyone.
No rules, no limits.
None. And the cruelty was extreme. They went after Roberto personally, but indirectly, through something he loved.
His horse, Terremoto.
Earthquake, his champion Colombian Paso Fino horse, worth millions, a symbol of his past success and passion.
What did they do?
They tortured and killed the horse's trainer to find out where Terremoto was hidden. Then they captured the horse.
And killed it.
Worse, they castrated him first, destroying his breeding value, then starved him to death.
Oh my God.
And left his emaciated body tied to a post on a public street in Medellin. It was psychological warfare at its most brutal. A message. We will destroy everything you care about.
The sheer hatred involved is chilling.
It was total war by that point, which leads us inevitably to Pablo's final days.
December 2nd, 1993. His 44th birthday was the day before, right?
Yeah. Roberto, who was back in custody by then, managed to get a warning out to him. Smuggled a letter out, hidden in the soles of a visitor's shoes. The message was urgent. They knew Pablo was using a mobile phone, and they believed the authorities, likely with U.S. help, were using sophisticated equipment to triangulate his signal.
Basically, stop using the phone, you're giving away your location.
Exactly. But Pablo, maybe lonely, maybe careless, maybe feeling invincible, he ignored the warning.
I kept making calls.
Lengthy calls. On his birthday, talking to his family, staying in one place too long.
Which allowed them to pinpoint him. The search block, maybe Delta Force too.
That's the context. The Central Spike Team, the U.S. Army intelligence unit specialized in signals interception, was known to be assisting the search block. They narrowed it down to the house, the street.
And then the raid happened. The official story is he was killed on the rooftop during the shootout.
Right. Shot by Colombian police. There are famous photos of the search block guys and reportedly some American personnel posing with Pablo's body, like big game hunters.
Roberto doesn't buy that account.
Not for a second. He is absolutely convinced that Pablo committed suicide.
Shot himself.
Specifically, a single shot behind the ear. Roberto argues it fits Pablo's lifelong mentality, his vows, that he would rather have a grave in Colombia than a jail cell in the United States. He would never let them capture him alive, never let them extradite him, never let them have him as a trophy. Suicide was the final act of control.
Two completely different narratives of his final moments. The state's victory versus a final defiant act.
And Roberto is adamant about his version.
After Pablo's death, Roberto's own ordeal was far from over. He was already in custody, but then he was targeted directly.
Yeah, a bomb attack while he was detained, a letter bomb apparently, caused horrific injuries.
He was blinded.
Yes, effectively blinded. Shrapnel shredded his eyes, sliced his nose, damaged his ears. The doctors initially said his eyes were ruined, like raisins, and recommended removing them entirely.
But his mother refused.
Hermilda, she absolutely refused. Said she would find a doctor who would try to save his sight no matter how slim the chance. She was determined not to lose another son completely.
And his recovery sounds just agonizing.
Terrible stories. A nurse accidentally putting rubbing alcohol directly into one of his damaged eyes, being carelessly dropped by guards while being moved, risking the delicate cornea transplant he eventually received. Just constant suffering.
Yet, amazingly, it was Roberto, from prison, partially blind and recovering, who initiated the move towards peace with the Cali cartel.
He realized the cycle of revenge would just continue, targeting his remaining family unless someone broke it, and he knew who had the moral authority to approach the Cali leaders.
His mother again, Hermilda.
He sent her as his envoy. This elderly woman, Pablo Escobar's mother, walked into a meeting with the top Cali bosses, people like Jose Santa Cruz.
What must that have been like?
Incredible courage. She basically laid down a challenge. She told them, look, kill me and my grandson right now if you want, or we make peace.
And her argument for peace was quite strategic, wasn't it?
Very smart. She pointed out that Pablo's whole bloody war was primarily fought over one thing: extradition.
Which the Cali guys also feared.
Exactly. Hermilda argued that Pablo's fight, in a way, had benefited them all by leading to the constitutional ban. She said, now that Pablo's gone, the government and the U.S. are coming for you. Their common enemy was the state, not each other anymore.
And Santa Cruz apparently acknowledged she was right.
He did. It was a turning point. The logic was undeniable.
And the peace was sealed by another incredibly risky symbolic gesture later on.
Right. After Jose Santa Cruz himself was killed later in Medellin, it was Roberto's son, Nico, who volunteered to do something extraordinary.
Return the body.
Yes, a hugely dangerous mission, taking the body of a top Cali boss back into Cali territory. Anything could have happened.
But he did more than just return the body.
He personally dressed Santa Cruz's body in his own wedding tuxedo.
Wow. As a sign of ultimate respect.
Exactly. It was this incredibly personal, deeply symbolic act that cemented the peace, showed the Escobar family was serious about ending the war, honoring their former enemies.
So what's left of Pablo's empire today? Hacienda Napoles.
Mostly ruins. Looted, decaying, squatters living there now. A shadow of its former, glory, if you can call it that.
But there's one weird legacy still wandering around?
The hippos. Oh, wait, the outline says rhinos. Okay, rhinos. He illegally imported them for his private zoo at Napoles.
And they're still there.
Not just still there, they've thrived, bred successfully, the herd's gotten bigger.
And the government can't handle them.
Apparently they're too big, too dangerous, too difficult to capture or manage now, so they just roam free near the river. A bizarre living testament to his excesses.
It's such a strange final image. And Pablo himself, his legacy in Colombia is still complicated, right?
Deeply complicated. You still have thousands who venerate him, who visit his grave at Monte Sacro Cemetery, pray for him. That Robin Hood image persists for some.
And his mother never really let go.
No, Roberto says until the day she died, she slept with one of Pablo's old shirts under her pillow. Still connected to the boy she remembered, maybe.
And Roberto himself, the accountant who saw it all, survived it all.
He lives quietly now, on a farm focused on family. He's also, interestingly, dedicated himself to AIDS research, trying to build a different kind of legacy, perhaps.
His life, losing his sight, losing that whole past identity, it's the ultimate illustration of the cost. The cost of Pablo fulfilling that childhood vow to his mother. I'll give you everything.
Yeah, the cost was unimaginable for everyone.
So reflecting on all this, especially through Roberto's logistical, almost business-like lens, it makes you wonder, if Pablo had somehow succeeded in his ultimate ambition, becoming president of Colombia while still running his empire, do you think legitimate political power at that level could have eventually washed away the stain of the violence, the criminality? Or was the accountant's story, the sheer volume of blood and dirty money in those hidden ledgers, always going to be the defining, inescapable truth of his legacy?